Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Ghost Boy here, and to be completely honest, I've actually hated Valentine's Day almost my entire life. But I do have fun enjoying the theme of the holiday, I guess you could say, at least when it comes to the movies. And since I've been feeling the Valentine's Day vibes lately, I figured I should just have fun and make the video I want to make. Now, if you haven't seen it already, I did a top 10 best Valentine's Day horror movie list last year, and I am going to be discussing a few of the movies I included on that list. But in that video, I was mainly discussing the couples within the films, whereas this year, I'll be talking about the movies themselves. Also, I'm a little bit more lenient when it comes to the rules for what is or isn't a Valentine's Day horror movie. For example, when I do my Christmas and Halloween videos, I solely discuss films that take place on or around those holidays. But with Valentine's Day, I kind of just go with my gut and talk about whatever movies I think fit into the category. Some do take place on or around Valentine's Day, but others just involve romance or feel festive, at least in my opinion. Another fun, silly thing I've decided to do this year is separate the list into two different categories. The first category is pink and purple, and the second category is red and black. None of these movies are in any kind of order, but number one is definitely one of my favorite modern slasher films, and one of the best Valentine's Day horror movies of all time. Now, with all that being said, let's begin our list. My Valentine. A pop singer's identity is stolen by her ex-boyfriend/manager and shamelessly passed on to his new girlfriend. Locked together late one night in a concert venue, the three reconcile emotional abuses from the past, and things take a violent turn. This movie really surprised me. It has a very cool concept, but it's surprisingly really dark and deals with abusive relationships as well as PTSD. I really liked the whole look and feel of this movie. Stylistically, I'd compare it to something like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, because even though it deals with very serious topics, it can also be quite humorous and comic booky at times. Also, the whole story being shown through the eyes of a pop star dealing with emotional trauma kinda reminded me of Smile 2 as well. And I thought it was pretty funny and clever that the main girl's name is literally Valentine. So if you're searching for a film that shows the negative repercussions of what happens when people get too intertwined, then I recommend watching My Valentine. My Best Friend's Exorcism. Best friends Abby and Gretchen's lives are changed forever after a weekend getaway goes terribly wrong. Soon, Gretchen begins to act different, which leads Abby to suspect her best friend may be possessed by a demon. This movie isn't perfect by any means, but one great thing I can say about it is that I really enjoyed the chemistry between the two main characters and the actors portraying them. This film is very similar to Jennifer's Body as well as Ginger Snaps, but has more of a horror comedy vibe to it that I would compare to movies like Happy Death Day or Totally Killer. So if you want to watch a horror comedy with a side of feminism, then I recommend watching My Best Friend's Exorcism. F. Marry, Kill. Thrown into the world of online dating by her best friends, true crime junkie Eva Vaughn suddenly finds herself at the center of a real-life murder case. As new details come to light, she soon realizes that one of the three men she's dating might be the infamous Swipe Right Killer. I was hooked on this film as soon as I heard the premise, and I was not disappointed at all. I'm a huge fan of true crime, and this film is clever, entertaining, humorous, and keeps you guessing the whole time. So if it's Valentine's Day and you're looking for an exciting, mysterious thrill, then I recommend watching F. Marry, Kill. Y2K. On the last night of 1999, two high school juniors crash a New Year's Eve party, only to find themselves fighting for their lives when the terror of Y2K becomes a reality, and all the machines rise up against humanity. Apparently not many people like this film, but it has quickly become one of my favorite and most watched movies of all time. I seriously don't think I'll ever get sick of it. I heard someone describe it as This Is the End mixed with Superbad and a little bit of Scream. And I think that's a very accurate description, and probably explains part of why I enjoy the movie so much, because I love all of those films. And this movie stars Jaden Martell, Julian Dennison, Rachel Zegler, Lachlan Watson, Mason Gooding, and the Kid Leroy. All of whom I absolutely love, but especially Lachlan Watson and Jaden Martell. I relate a lot to Jaden Martell's character, and Lachlan Watson is honestly just my idol, and I've loved them in everything I've ever watched them in. But in conclusion, this movie is a blast. It has a great soundtrack, funny, likable characters, an awesome story, and is just a really fun, unique, very watchable film. So if you want to watch a crazy, fun, special movie to celebrate Valentine's Day, then I highly recommend watching Y2K. Lisa Frankenstein. A misunderstood teenager and a reanimated corpse embark on a murderous journey together to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts. So this would have been the #1 movie on my list, but I already made it #1 last year, so I figured I had to switch things up a bit. But this is without a doubt one of my favorite movies of all time, and a very big comfort movie for me. I relate a lot to the character of Lisa Swallows, which is probably really sad, but I'm just being honest. And I really love the whole 80s aesthetic that this film has. Not only the music from that time era, but it's also a very visually pleasing film. It's really colorful, and ironically, even though one of the main two characters is basically dead, this film feels very lively, and there's never a dull moment. You really get sucked into the lives and relationships of the characters. This is probably the absolute best movie you can watch on Valentine's. So I 100% recommend watching Lisa Frankenstein. My Bloody Valentine 3D. Tom returns to his hometown on the 10th anniversary of the Valentine's Day massacre that claimed the lives of 22 people. But instead of a warm welcome, he finds himself suspected of committing the murders when a new wave of killings begin. I really wish this movie would have launched a whole franchise. I know this is a remake, but the killer is very unforgettable. He's scary, intimidating, and very, very violent. There's also lots of twists and turns in this film, with shocking reveals. And we don't know for most of the movie if the killer is human or supernatural. And this might be a weird thing to say, but I really liked the small town that this movie takes place in. It's one of those small, seemingly innocent towns that secretly has a dark past. Something like Antonio Bay from The Fog, or the town of Riverdale. This movie is gory, has a great story, and is never ever boring. So this Valentine's Day, if you're craving a movie filled with blood and gore instead of happiness and glee, then I recommend watching My Bloody Valentine 3D. Freaky. After swapping bodies with a deranged serial killer, a high school senior discovers she has less than 24 hours to reverse the curse before the change becomes permanent. So ironically, Friday the 13th falls on the day before Valentine's Day this year, and since this movie has a romance subplot and uses a lot of the color red, I figured it would be appropriate to include it on the list. I absolutely adore Katherine Newton. She's already become an iconic scream queen, and she plays a very multi-layered role in this film. She's cute, she's creepy, she's comedic, and honestly, so is Vince Vaughn, which I never thought I would say. Body-swapping movies are always already very amusing, but then you add the slasher twist, and it's no surprise this movie has already become an instant classic. It's bloody, heartfelt, and a lot of fun. So whether it be Friday the 13th or Valentine's Day, If you're feeling sneaky or a little bit cheeky, grab some chocolate and watch Freaky. Seed of Chucky. Chucky and his homicidal honey Tiffany are brought back to life by their orphan offspring. Then the family goes Hollywood as Chucky unleashes his own brand of murderous mayhem. So I went back and forth on whether or not I should include this movie on the list, because besides the Child's Play remake, this is the most hated film in the entire franchise. But it's honestly in my top 4 favorite films within the franchise. Glenn and Glenda are my favorite characters in the entire Chucky universe. And it's always really nice having some LGBTQIA+ representation in the horror community. Most people consider Bride of Chucky to be a Valentine's Day horror romance movie, and obviously I do as well. I even included it on my list last year. But I feel like Seed of Chucky is a continuation of that film. And since we get to see more of Chucky and Tiffany together as a couple trying to raise their child together, I feel like this movie is a great combination of horror and romance. So I decided to include it on my list. So this year, whether you're alone and your day is sucky, or you're in a relationship and have fun getting lucky, why not make it a double feature night and watch Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. Valentine. 4 friends start to receive morbid Valentine's Day cards and realize they are being stalked by a mysterious, murderous maniac. A masked killer is on the loose, and Valentine's Day is soon approaching. This film is super underrated in my opinion. And funny enough, it was not only released the same month I was born, but the day after I was born. Which is kind of ironic because this movie feels very nostalgic to me. It has that early 2000s charm to it. I see it as basically a Valentine's Day themed version of the Scream franchise. So of course, everyone's a suspect. The Cupid killer in this movie is pretty badass, not gonna lie. Not only is the mask very memorable, but the killer also bleeds from their nose almost every time they kill someone, which is very creepy and unsettling. They also use multiple different weapons, including a bow and arrow, which is perfectly fitting for Cupid. This movie is also very festive, suggestive, and pulls off a twist that's really impressive. So on this day of romance, if you're sick and tired of roses, heart-shaped boxes, and cards that say "Be Mine," relax at home and watch Valentine. And now, the #1 movie on my list, and one of the best Valentine's Day horror movies of all time is Hard Eyes. For the past several years, the Hard Eyes killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. But this Valentine's Day, no one is safe. So I had seen this movie a few times and always really enjoyed it, but when I watched it again recently, I absolutely loved it more than ever. It has a great cast, creative kills, and a surprisingly really sincere, genuine romance. Plus, the Hard Eyes killer has to be one of the most awesome, memorable killers I've seen in a long time. I absolutely love the design of his mask, his outfit, and the wide variety of different weapons he uses. This movie is funny, bloody, and very romantic, and is without a doubt one of the most perfect movies you could ever watch with your significant other on Valentine's Day. So whether Valentine's Day is a day you love or despise, this February 14th you should take a chance, because you might be surprised by how much you love watching Hard Eyes. Well, everybody, that's the end of my list. Let me know if there's any other Valentine's Day movies that I missed. And whether you love this holiday, or it just makes you pissed, I hope you have someone special, and you get to share a kiss. But if you don't, put your middle fingers in the air and scream, "Suck a d**."